So for the outline of the presentation, uh, I will be discussing about the introduction syempre ng Bureau of Philippine Standards, its mandates, commitments, other programs and services, as well as its structure. Going to the technical side, I will be discussing the Bureau of Philippine Standards directives on the standards development, the existing international standards on agricultural or agriculture products, as well as our own homegrown standards for the said products. Going to the background or yung enabling mechanism, the Bureau of Philippine Standards, we do have three laws that enable or establish Bureau of Philippine Standards as the one of the standards development organizations here in the Philippines. Starting from the Republic Act 4109 or the Standardization Law of the Philippines, Executive Order number 133 series of 1987, as well as the Republic Act 7394 or the Consumer Act of the Philippines. Going to the specifics of Republic Act 4109, the Bureau of Commerce, or siya yung former name ni BPS, was mandated for the establishment of standards as well as the inspection of all agricultural, forest, mineral, fish industry, and all other products of the Philippines in which wala pang standard. Under Executive Order number 133, the formerly known Bureau of Standards was known or was renamed into Bureau of Product Standards, in which yung mandate din po niya were also modified, of course, to cover the standardization activities. For currently, Republic Act 7394 or the Consumer Act of the Philippines mandated DTI Bureau of Philippine Standards to establish consumer product quality and safety standards, which shall consist of one or more of the following. Yung mga standards po na dinedevelop ni BPS may be the following, such as the requirements as to performance, composition, content, design. Meron din pong requirements as to kind, class, grade, dimensions, as well as yung material ng isang product. Methods of sampling, test methods, and even codes used to check the quality of the product. Requirements for the precautions in storage, transporting, and even packaging, and so on. Also, under Republic Act 7394, Consumer Act of the Philippines identified three major standardization bodies or standards development bodies. Aside from DTI Bureau of Philippine Standards, we do have Department of Agriculture for the agricultural products and the Department of Health for standards for food, health products, and health devices. For your information, the standards developed by Department of Agriculture and Department of Health will be promulgated through the Bureau of Philippine Standards. Kumbaga, yung mga standards na dinevelop nila will be endorsed to us, the BPS, to become a Philippine national standards. As BPS po, we are ensuring that the products or the standards that they have developed, the Department of Agriculture and Department of Health will be conforming with the Bureau of Philippine Standards directives for the standards development. The said directive will be discussed later in the presentation. Furthermore, as the national standards body of the Philippines, we are currently working with other standards development organizations. Hindi lang po sila Department of Agriculture and Department of Health. And we will be listing or we will be presenting it later in the presentation. So in relation to the previous slide, uh, the Bureau of Philippine Standards is currently working with the Standards Development Organization, just like what I have said earlier. Under the DTI Department Administrative Order number 19-08, or the National Recognition for Standards Development Organization, all SDDs or all SDOs mandated by law and or having the necessary expertise, capacity, and resources to develop standards for products and services can be recognized as a standards development organization. Of course, through a written agreement with the BPS, being the agency tasked to promulgate, develop Philippine national standards. Yung sinasabi pong written agreement dito can be either memorandum of agreement or memorandum of understanding, which it is written for the purpose of defining the responsibilities and the commitment of both parties in development of the Philippine national standards. Through DAO 19-08, we have institutionalized the recognition of first the Development Academy of the Philippines for management system standards or regulatory management system standards. We also recognize the National Tobacco Administration of DA for the development of standards for tobacco and tobacco products. Department of Agriculture Philippine Coconut Authority for coconut products. Department of Energy Oil Industry Management Bureau, as well as the Institute of Integrated Electrical Engineers. So with them, we are working hand in hand with the mentioned agencies or organizations to develop Philippine national standards. As the national standards body, alongside with other standards development organizations, we do have the commitment to align national standards to international standards, as we are committed with the World Trade Organization Technical Barriers to Trade Agreement. As since the Philippines ay member ng WTO, we are recommended or we are obliged to use international standards, guides, and recommendations or relevant parts of them as basis for their national technical regulations and even conformity assessment procedures. Furthermore, under the said agreement, even though when we recommend na i-harmonize natin or adapt natin yung mga existing international standards, deviations can still be made following legitimate objectives as prescribed under the WTO TBT agreement. So for the areas or for the grounds for us to deviate, there should be a national security requirements, or if there will be if the deviation is based on prevention of deceptive practices, or kumbaga nagde-deviate tayo sa isang international standard since it will prevent deceptive practices, it can be accepted. Also, if the issue for deviation is related to protection of human health or safety, as well as the safety of animals or plant life, it can be accepted. So, kasi there are times that even though a standard is considered as an international standard, some of its provision is not applicable here in our country. Also, to provide additional examples, yung climatic and other geographic factors na currently we do have in the Philippines can also be a ground for us to deviate in an international standard. Speaking of international standardization, allow me to introduce three or some of the recognized international standardization bodies. First, we do have ISO, or the International Organization for Standardization. the IEC or International Electrotechnical Commission, and the ITU for technological products, or for the communication products. Going to the services and programs of the Bureau of Philippine Standards before we proceed with standardization in food and agricultural products, allow me to introduce kung ano-ano nga ba yung mga programs and services na meron si Bureau of Philippine Standards. First, we do have the Standards Development Division, in which we are the division responsible for the research, the development, as well as the revision of the existing Philippine national standards for the adoption of international standards into Philippine national standards. Next, we do have Standards Mainstreaming Division, isa po sa aming division in the Bureau, in which they are responsible naman po for coordination with other national government agencies na responsible for the regulation of other products and services, as well as for the mainstreaming, syempre, ng mga Philippine national standards that we are developing. We do also have the Standards Conformity Division, who is responsible for our product scheme. For example, if you are aware with the ICC mark and PS mark na nakikita natin sa mga helmets or Christmas lights, ibig sabihin po nun yung product na yun is dumaan po sa mandatory certification scheme natin to ensure the safety and quality of those products. And lastly, we do have our testing laboratory or our product testing division, in which they work hand in hand with the Standards Conformity Division in ensuring the quality and safety of our products na nasa merkado. Just an overview, or just for your visualization, this is the organizational structure in BPS on 2020, and currently this 2021 medyo may pagbabago ito. For the Standards Development Division, these are the areas or sections in which we are engaging, or we do have standards development. Okay, to continue, this 2021 Standards Development Division possess the following structure. First, we do have the section for building and construction products, section for the mechanical products, consumer products and services, chemical products, and electrical and electronic products. So, since in the previous slides, lagi natin mini-mention yung standard. So, for the benefit of the viewers and audiences, magkaroon tayo ng, kumbaga, ng isang concept kung ano nga ba yung standard. So, standard is a document established by a consensus and approved by a recognized body that provides for common and repeated use, rules, guidelines, or characteristics for activities or their results, aim at the achievement of the optimum degree of order in given text. Also, this standard should be based or should be developed based on the consolidated results of science, technology, and experience, and it aims for the promotion of the optimum community benefits, or yung benefit nung mismong gagamit. So, to attach here in the right side po ng slide is the example nung front cover ng isang international standard na na-adapt as Philippine National Standard. So, this standard is PNS ISO 9001, 2015, or the Quality Management Systems requirements. For the types of standards, we do have the following po. Una, we do have standards that are considered basic. in which examples po nito is terminology, symbols, units, or even mga drawing rules. For product standards, it's more on its dimension or mga prescribed dimension, material properties ng isang product, variety reduction, and we also do have method standards such as test methods, internationally recognized test methods, procedure standards, framework standards, quality standards such as ISO 9001, and functional standards. Standards do also have different levels po. So kanina po nabanggit na natin na mayroong international standard. Standards organization can be classified by their role, position, and the extent of their influence in the local, national, regional, and global standardization arena. So the levels of standardization is as follows. Una, we do have international standards in which they are developed by ISO, IEC, ITU, and even Codex Alimentarius. We also do have regional standards, which were developed by some of the examples here, such as CUL, Underwriters Laboratory, ASTM, and even CEN or CEN-CENELEC. And going to the national standards, one good example of national standards is yung standards po na develop ni BPS, and of course with the help po ng other standards development organizations na na-mention po natin po dito. As our counterparts, we do have the ANSI for the United States of America, JIS in Japan, and AFNOR for France. So currently, each countries po ay meron din pong mga national standardization bodies, and they are too many to mention. Under the national standards, we do have the standards development organizations, in which these bodies were accredited or recognized by the above mentioned standardization bodies to develop standards, since meron silang capability and resources as well as expertise. Please also note na hindi lang po pala yung mga nakapresent dito sa slide, yung mga examples for each level. For the Philippine National Standard, it was recommended, or every PNS is reviewed by the technical committee at least every 5 years. Yung technical committee na sinasabi po natin dito will be discussed in the succeeding slides. So going back, CPNS is recommended to be reviewed every 5 years. Or if there will be a request by one or more concerned sector in order to determine whether it should be reconfirmed, amended, revised, or even withdrawn pag nakita natin obsolete na siya. As of April 2021, BPS developed or has developed a total of 11,336 Philippine National Standards, in which 9,033 doon were aligned, or kumbaga, were aligned to the international standards or existing international standards. So to establish the concept of standards versus the technical regulations, standards contains characteristics for products or related process, production methods. On the other hand, technical regulations also contains the mentioned property. So also before we proceed, standards is voluntary in nature, and technical regulations oftentimes was created through a law, making it mandatory. So at the bottom, we can see that the standards contains only technical provisions. However, compliance with it is not mandatory. Therefore, makes it, or the standards is voluntary. On the other hand, Technical regulation includes both administrative and technical provisions, with which compliance is mandatory. Si technical regulations po, most of the time, it was established and administered by a variety of bodies, often in the government sector or public sector. For most of the time, si technical regulation was made, of course, to address safety and quality concerns po ng mga products and services, as well as health concerns. Standards also is based on consensus, in which we will be also discussing it later in the BPS directives. On the other hand, technical regulations may not be based on consensus, in consideration that there are times or most of the times na meron at meron po talagang maapektuhan na industry. So going to the technical side po in developing standards, BPS develops standards through the following. First, we do have the technical committee method or the project approach, and we also do have the fast track method. Yung nasabi po nating mga method is conforms with our existing BPS directives for standards development, in which we do have 3 parts for the general principles and organizational structure, responsibilities and procedures for the technical work, as well as for the rules for the structure and drafting ng mismong Philippine national standards. Also, our procedure in developing standards is in conformance with the Code of Good Practice for the preparation, adoption, and application of standards under the WTO Technical Barriers to Trade Agreement. Proceeding to the technical committee method, technical committee is defined as a main body who develops Philippine national standards, or also they can also be a body that recommends the adoption of the international and other relevant standards. So, dalawa po ang duty ni technical committee. They can create or they can develop a Philippine national standard or a homegrown standard. Homegrown standard if ever na wala pong existing international standard for that. And they can also recommend the adoption of existing international standards. These technical committees is numbered in sequence in the order in which they are established. So, for example, nagsimula sa number 9, number 9, 10, 11, and so on. The title of the technical committee shall be as much as possible in line with the title of the relevant ISO or IEC technical committee if ever they are mirroring a technical committee na meron si ISO. Next, yung scope po ni technical committee must precisely define the limits of the work of a technical committee to make sure na wala pong overlapping ng duties or walang overlapping ng scope ng standardization yung mga technical committees na meron po tayo. So, to give example, kung ano yung mga technical committees na meron si BPS currently, we do have TC1 for electric wires and cables, TC4 for lamps and related equipment, school and office supplies, furniture, road vehicles, up to TC92, which is yung pinakabago po namin technical committee, which is siya po yung technical committee ng Philippine Deviations. So, if ever na narinig nyo po yung information with regards to sa standardization ni Adobo or Itinola, TC92 is the technical committee responsible for the review and even the standards development of the Filipino dishes. And as of June 2021, we do have 54 active technical committees. So, despite 92 technical committees na yung meron si BPS, only 54 of them is yung active. For the technical committee, it is composed of TC members, in which this TC member, as much as possible, composed of the representatives from the following sectors, namely the academe, the trade or industry sector, the consumer or the consumer sector, professional association related to the product or services that will be standardized, research institution, government agencies, and even testing institutions. For the technical committee members, please note that there should be no single interest shall predominate. Dito po pumapasok yung concept ng consensus in which in the development of standards, kailangan agreed upon po yung mga provisions or yung content standards na dinedevelop or recommend for adoption. For the technical committee, aside from the members or the TC members as mentioned earlier, we do have the chairman, the vice chairman, and even the technical committee manager. In case of the technical committee manager, isa po ako dun sa mga manager or technical committee manager na meron si BPS. BPS Standards Development Division. To have an overview lang po ng mga responsibilities ng composition ng isang technical committee, the first column po is for the chairman / vice chairman in case na absent po si chairman in the meeting. Next is the members as well as yung mga technical committee managers. To browse or to run through, si chairman po should act or shall act in purely national capacity. So, hindi po dapat yung vested interest yung kinoconsider nila if ever na nagkakaroon po ng discussion sa technical committee meeting. Also, chairman and the vice chairman should or shall guide the technical committee manager with regards to sa discussion na gaganap. The chairman conducts meetings with a view of reaching agreement in community drafts. So, chairman also should ensure that all points of view are expressed or understood in the meeting. So, siya talaga po yung main facilitator in the meeting. Siya yung nagli-lead kung ano yung magiging direction ng technical committee. Next, for the members should be responsible in keeping his or her organization well informed about the committee projects. Since nominated po siya ng organization nila, he or she should be responsible syempre na i-inform din sila kung ano yung nagaganap sa technical committee meetings. Also, hindi rin dapat yung mismong view ni member yung i-express niya dun sa technical committee meetings. Rather, he or she shall express the views of his or her organization. He or she shall also attend all its meetings as much as possible since kailangan actively participating siya dun sa mga discussion in the technical committee. Study all drafts and documents as well as even consider the decisions in these meetings as vital as they affect life, health, safety, national economy, and property. So, for the members, they shall or he or she shall participate actively since yung mga standards na dinedevelop nila can affect a very wide range of factors. For the technical committee manager, we are considered as the secretariat for the meeting or for the technical committee. We are responsible for the management of projects, calendar and scheduling of meetings, implementing the decision of the technical committee based on sa agreements na napag-agrihan in the meeting. We are also responsible for guiding the technical committee with regards to sa BPS directives or yung mga principles na associated sa standards development. Also, we are also responsible for keeping the chairman informed in all the committee matters and related developments. So, kumbaga, all three entities here na presented works hand in hand in making the technical committee effective in developing Philippine national standards. For the qualification of the chairman, vice chairman, and the technical committee members, as much as possible, the member to be nominated should be a Filipino citizen, as well as having the minimum educational attainment relevant to the scope of the technical committee. Syempre, napakahalaga nito. Kumbaga, kailangan yung inonominate or yung magpa-participate na member shall have the knowledge, of course, with regards to sa product or services na pag-uusapan. He or she shall be willing to share his or her technical expertise, which is one of the important qualifications, as well as yung commitment nila to participate actively in the technical committee work, consider national interest, hindi yung personal interest or organizational interest lamang. And the member or the member to be nominated or to be participating in the technical committee meeting should or shall come from a reputable organization in which wala silang legal case with the Department of Trade and Industry. And lastly, the member to be nominated or to be participating in the meeting shall have a tact and diplomacy. Aside sa technical committee, standardization can also be carried out by the subcommittees, working groups, or ad hoc committees. Si subcommittees po ay under po siya ng isang technical committee. Nagkakaroon po kasi ng subcommittees if ever na masyado pong malawak yung scope the technical committee, and dapat magkaroon ng specific subcommittee na mag-handle ng standardization for the said product. So, one good example po nito is yung BPSTC 40 namin, which is siya po yung Technical Committee for Packaging. And as we all know, si packaging po madami po kinds. For example, meron pong paper packaging, may glass containers, and even plastic packaging. Isa po yun sa mga scenario in which maganda pong mag-establish ng isang subcommittee. Si working group, we can consider it as an expert group in which they are responsible for the standardization of a specific project. Kumbaga, may si technical committee gustong mag-develop ng isang standard for a specific product. Si working group po madalas ang ginagawa or ang ini-establish. Ang pinagkaiba naman po ni subcommittee at ni working group is si subcommittee can exist as long as, or should I say, pwede siyang mag-exist since meron po siyang work program or kumbaga mas malawak yung scope ng standardization niya. And si working group naman can be dissolved as soon as yung project nila is ma-accomplish na, or yung specific project na inassign sa kanila ng technical committee is already finished. So as of January 2021, BPS has 54 active technical committees as mentioned earlier. Meron din po kaming 13 subcommittees na under siya syempre ng technical committees and 11 working groups. For the process of the technical committee method or project approach, we do have first the new project or / the review of existing DMs. Meaning, magsisimula po yung review or development ng isang Philippine National Standards if ever na may mag-propose syempre na isang organization or isang company or isang agency na makita nila, kailangan natin mag-develop ng standard for this, pwede silang lumapit kay BPS to have their proposal, and dun po magsisimula yung establishment ng, for example, isang technical committee or yung standards development ng isang product or service. If ever na existing naman yung technical committee and meron ng Philippine National Standard for the said product or services, we can proceed naman, of course, dun sa review ng existing Philippine National Standard. Next, once the project or the Philippine National Standards to be reviewed were already identified na, we can proceed with the research. Si research po ay ginagawa, of course, to gather relative information na gagamitin for the development or for the development or review of the standard. Once research was already done, mag-proceed po tayo sa deliberation or yung mga series of meetings na nagagawin ni technical committee to come up with the committee draft Philippine National Standard. So, yung technical committee, most of the time, we are having meetings every month po. So, once the technical committee already come up with the draft Philippine National Standard, it will undergo circulation. Yung tinatawag naming circulation period. This circulation period lasts for about 2 months or 60 calendar days. The purpose ng circulation is for, of course, makuha yung comments ng mga related stakeholders na associated dun sa products and services. Siyempre, unang-una, hindi naman po natin lahat kumbaga may invite lahat ng stakeholders to participate in a technical committee meeting. So, and as we all know, si technical committee is also a representation of the stakeholders lang. So, for the purpose of making sure that most of the stakeholders involved in the product or services will be or makakapagbigay ng comments dun sa developmental standards, ginagawa po natin itong circulation for 2 months or 60 working days. So after 2 months or 60 working days, if ever na may na-receive na major comments from the stakeholders, babalik po yung draft Philippine National Standards dun sa technical committee to review, to consider yung mga comments na na-receive. If ever naman na walang comments na na-receive, the technical committee can proceed in finalizing the draft Philippine National Standard into final draft Philippine National Standard. Once finalized, the technical committee will be recommending, the technical committee will be recommending the approval of the final draft Philippine National Standards to become a Philippine National Standards. Yung approval po na yon will be done by the BPS director or the head of the organization. And once approved, dito na po papasok yung publication ng document as Philippine National Standard or yung document po na na-develop will be now be known as Philippine National Standard. So for the project stages and associated documents, ito po yung stages na dinadaanan for the development of Philippine National Standards or even yung review of existing Philippine National Standards. So we do have the proposal stage as presented earlier, preparatory, committee stage, circulation ng mismong draft Philippine National Standards, approval, publication, and the maintenance. Also here po yung mga associated documents for the said stage and the abbreviation of the said documents. So as mentioned earlier, we do have two processes, namely the technical committee method, which is we already discussed na, and the fast track method. Or now we do have the fast track procedure. So kailan ba ginagawa yung fast track procedure? Fast track procedure can be done if the standards na i-adapt will be considered as guide, terminology, vocabulary, classification, symbol. So yung mga standards na pwedeng mag-undergo sa fast track procedure most of the time is yung mga basic standards na na-mention natin earlier. Also, standards developed by SDOs whose procedures follow the BPS directives can also proceed with the fast track. Since yung mga standards naman na ginawa nila already complied with the BPS directives, the role of BPS na lang po is syempre is to publish and promulgate yung standard na dinevelop nila. Next, for the standards na dadaan sa fast track procedure, yung mga standards or international standards na considered as test methods, performance, and even safety standards na bibigyan specifications, it will undergo 60 circulation days or 60 calendar days. Di ba nabanggit po natin sa technical committee method kanina na may circulation period? Sa fast track procedure po, meron din po. Lalo na po pag yung mga product na or lalo na yung mga standards na for test methods, performance, and safety standards in which wala siyang existing na technical committee. This is to ensure din syempre na kahit walang technical committee, makukuha din natin yung recommendations and comments ng existing stakeholder natin or existing industry natin kung meron pa. So to give you a visualization kung ano ang nilalaman ng isang Philippine National Standards, especially kung product specification standard siya, we do have first the title page as presented in the left side of this slide, the forward or the national forward in which most of the time dun po nakasulat kung sino po yung approving body nung standard, sino yung nag-develop or nag-recommend for its adoption, as well as kung merong bang version or kumbaga may edition ba siya na sinusupersede. Next, we do have the introduction in which it is only optional, yung scope or yung hanggang saan lang yung sakop ng standard. We do have the normative references in which it lists po yung mga ginamit na standards, international standards man o mga Philippine national standards in the development. Terms and definitions, the requirements or the specification ng product, test methods, the sampling procedure for the product is also included po dito sa standard. The required marking, labeling, and packaging can also be included. Annexes, in which it can be an informative annex or a normative annex, and the bibliography and references na ginamit din also for the development of these standards. So, all in all, ano nga ba yung role ng mga standards na dine-develop po ni Bureau of Philippine Standards alongside ng mga standards development organizations natin? The standard can be used as a reference for mandatory/voluntary certification. It can also be used as reference dun sa research na ginagawa ng ating mga academe and manufacturing companies. Also, standards can also be used sometimes in drafting laws in which madalas may mga provisions sila, especially kung mag-establish ng technical regulation for a product or service, nagre-refer po sila dun sa mga provisions ng ating Philippine National Standards. And for the benefits of standards and even yung mismong standardization process, standards promote reliability in the sense na since yung standards na ginagamit natin was developed internationally, for example, international standard yung pinag-usapan natin, and the provisions of these international standards, of course, was agreed upon by numerous international communities, we can say na magiging reliable yung mga product or services na pinoprovide natin if ever na i-reference natin siya dun sa standards na meron tayo. Also, connected din po sa reliability, it also improved yung performance ng mismong product and services. And consequently, magkakaroon ng better quality for the product or even services in the market, in the industry, na makakatulong din sa industry natin in increasing its revenue. In case naman po sa mga safety and health concerns, magkakaroon po ng risk reduction since the standards were developed through the use of science and technology. There will be also sustainability. And of course, meron ding innovation with regards to sa mga existing technologies na meron tayo. One good example po ng use ng standard is yung isa po sa aming function is yung product certification scheme. And as you can see on the right side, may mga list of products and systems tayo na nag-undergo sa mandatory product schemes. So for this, yung standard po natin or yung mga nade-develop na Philippine National Standards o yung mga na-i-adapt natin na international standards at PNS, they will be our reference documents po in making sure po na yung mga products and services na nasa market is complying or are complying po dun sa internationally agreed na mga standards. For this, we do have for our product certification scheme, we do have the import commodity clearance, or ito po yung certification scheme na ginagamit namin for the imported products. And we also have the Philippine Standards mark, in which ito naman po yung ginagamit natin for the local manufacturers. For your visualization, ito po yung mga examples sa mga products under the mandatory product certification scheme namin, in which ginagamit namin si Philippine National Standards as a reference. So it is a clear manifestation po, or it is a clear ito po yung practice na ginagawa natin, na yung mga mandatory product certification scheme na ginagawa natin is reference from Philippine National Standards. For electrical products, we do have household appliances, lamps, wiring devices, wires and cables, construction materials and even mechanical and building, chemical and other consumer products such as helmets, fire extinguisher, even yung phosphoro pati lighter, fireworks, mga gulong, and so on. So, since nagkaroon na po tayo ng overview on how standards development works here, let's proceed naman po dun sa specifics, namely yung international and national standards related on agricultural products or even food products. So, as one of the recognized, or as one of the international standards body, there are 21,500 international standards na developed sa ISO related, and in which 1,000 of them is related to agriculture. This covers the following domains, namely tractors and machinery for agriculture, irrigation, fertilizers and soil conditioners, feed machinery and animal feeding stocks, environmental impact, protective clothing for agricultural use, agricultural electronics, and even food products and safety. So just to provide you the list of existing standards on agriculture, hindi uh, also hindi lang po pala siya yung kabuuan ng mga standards na na-mention ko po. Kumbaga nagbigay lang po ako ng mga standards na na-identify ni ISO na beneficial for the said areas na na-mention earlier. So, ISO TC23 or yung technical committee ni ISO on tractors and machinery for agriculture and forestry develop standards for tractors and machinery for agriculture. They do have standards also for automatic milking installation, for irrigation and drainage equipment. They develop standards for the sprinklers, for its definition and terms, kumbaga vocabulary as well as its classification. Yung number 2 naman po is for the design and operation requirements. Next, we do also have standards for sprinklers na nagfo-focus naman sa characterization of distribution and test methods. So test methods po siya for sprinklers na pwedeng gamitin if ever. May ISO standards din po tayo for durability test methods for sprinklers. Also under irrigation, we do have standards for sprayers, irrigation valves, different kinds of irrigation valves, control valves. And for fertilizer, ISO TC 134, we do also have standards for demarking as well as the presentation and declaration ng mga containers for fertilizers. Fertilizers classification as well as the soil conditioners, vocabulary related to fertilizers and soil conditioners, test methods for the determination of its content, number 4 and 5. For feeding machinery and animal feeding stocks, pwede po tayong management system for food safety. We can also maalin tulad siya kay quality management system or ISO 9001. We do also have prerequisite programs on food safety for farming, as well as standards for feed and animal food production. Next, under feed machinery and animal feeding stocks, meron pa rin po tayong standard for general principles and basic requirements for system and design ng mga feed and food chain. Meron din po tayong test method for determining the fat content of animal feeding stocks, as well as yung starch content, which is the ISO 6493. For the environmental impact, we do have ISO 14055, in which it established good practices in land management, which is related in agriculture. Next, for protective clothing, we do have the performance requirements for protective clothing worn by operators na associated or kumbaga exposed in liquid pesticides. Agricultural electronics, such as guidelines for establishing good practices. And for food products and safety, we do have a specification products such as ISO 2451, Cocoa Beach specification and quality requirements, the sampling procedure, and the ISO 24101, which helps with the implementation of good agricultural practice and even environmental protection. So these standards po na na-mention can be visited in the ISO's official website in iso.org, in which hindi lang po for agricultural products po makikita nyo doon, iba't iba pong mga international standards for different products and services. If ever you will be interested to checking those, they can be easily accessed po. Yung mga titles, yung mga technical committees, as well as yung mga scope po nila. Going to the standards development naman po in agricultural sector, under the Republic Act 7394, the Department of Agriculture through the Bureau of Agriculture and Fisheries Standards, or DABAPS, is responsible for the development of relevant and science-based Philippine national standards for primary and post-harvest agriculture and fisheries. Si BAPS po, or si DABAPS, is one of our, kumbaga sila po yung mga sinasabi po natin standards development organizations in which we are working hand in hand with them in developing or even reviewing existing international standards or developing Philippine national standards. Since nasa kanila po yung expertise for the said industry or the said products and services, it is better po syempre na sila po yung mag-handle for the standardization. However, as the Bureau of Philippine Standards, we are making sure po na yung mga standards na dinedevelop po nila should comply or shall comply po dun sa BPS directives for standards development. Para once na ma-finalize or ma-publish na or ma-finalize na nila yung document, ipopromulgate na po natin siya as Philippine National Standards. So, examples po ng mga dinedevelop ni BAPS na Philippine National Standards is first yung fisheries and aquaculture. There are Philippine National Standards for poultry, other animal products, agricultural machineries, halal-related standards, organic-related standards, and even production inputs. The list of approved Philippine National Standards po na na-develop ni BAPS can be accessed at www.baps.da.gov.ph, in which some of the standards po can be downloaded for free. This one picture din po kung ano po yung makikita nyo dun sa website ni BAPS. For the standards naman na po na develop or na promulgate as Philippine National Standards, you may procure copies of those through DTI-BPS website at bps@dti.gov.ph and through BAPS at baps.da.gov.ph. So you can visit both websites po to check po kung ano po yung mga Philippine National Standards natin na meron for agricultural products and even food standards. So to end this presentation, let me end this presentation po pala with a quote. So, agriculture is one of the noblest of all alchemy, for it turns earth and even manure into gold, conferring upon its cultivator the additional reward of health, by Paul Chatfield. So, una-una, maraming salamat po. Thank you very much for listening. And if there will be questions po among the participants po, we will try our best po to answer it po. Again, maraming salamat po.
Okay, thank you so much po, Sir Ed Del Rosario from DTI, Bureau of Philippine Standards. Thank you so much, sir, for that very wonderful and very informative presentation that you had given us. So before po I'll proceed to our open forum, let me just acknowledge some of the viewers that I have not acknowledged earlier. So hello pala sa Miagaw Farmers Association Cooperative, And to those who are watching from Quezon Province and Zambales. So good afternoon po sa inyong lahat. Hindi ko kasi sila nabate kanina. Anyway, let's proceed po to our open forum. Is it okay po ba, sir?
Yes, ma'am, sure po.
Okay, sige po. So also, for the information of everyone, together with Sir Ed Rosario is another member of DTI. He is together with Ma'am Anne Fajardo, the senior trade uh, Fernando, sorry. Fernando, Senior Trade Industry Development Specialist of DTI. So, sila pong dalawa yung mag-i-entertain ng mga questions niyo. So now, let's proceed to the first question for this episode. May nagpapatanong po, with the devolution of some services to the LGUs, what aspects of the standardization program will be devolved to the LGU?
Good afternoon, Ed. Let me answer that. Yes, for standardization, for programs, no, devolved to the LGUs, standardization is not included, or product standardization or services. There are identified national government, no, as shown by Mr. Ed Rosario a while ago. There are only three as per Consumer Act. No, it's the DA for the agricultural products. It's DOH through FDA and with its specific mga centers, no, for processed good and for pharmaceutical products. And for those products that are not within the jurisdiction of these two agencies, it falls under the Department of Trade and Industry. But recently, in our standardization, because of our standardization strategy, we have started recognizing standards development organization. So somehow, the standardization activity is being default to organizations that has the capacity to develop the standard, no, and that has the expertise, because the standardization is science, technology, and experience. So it will be very hard if it will devolve to the local government, because we have the national government offices who have more expertise on these particular products. Like if it were talking of petroleum, for energy, we have recognized agency from the DOE. If we're talking of what's this? We have also recognized Development Academy of the Philippines for services for regulatory standards. So these are the things that makes it not possible to devolve to the local government the standardization activity.
I see. Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. That was a very clear explanation. And yes, as what ma'am Anne has said, nga, no, standardization is really a combination of science, technology, and experience. So hindi talaga siya madali na iasa sa kahit sino kasi we really need experts for that. Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now let's go to another question. This one is from one of our Facebook viewers. This is from Sherwin Obos Taramosa. So he is asking po, is there a unified plant nursery stock standard in the Philippines like the American standard for nursery stock Z-60.1? If none, whose responsibility is it for unifying its standardization? Meron siyang pahabol na clarification. The above question is for planting materials as applied in horticulture, agronomy, and forestry.
Okay. Our being here is just to respond, no, to the invitation of of Xavier. Unfortunately, when we talk of food standardization, we have our the only Department of Agriculture, Bureau of Agriculture and Fisheries Standards, who has the jurisdiction of this standardization. So when it comes to good agricultural practice, no, for the raw material, for the not processed, not yet processed agricultural food, agricultural products, including its machineries. It's with DA buffs. So my our response would be we are sure this is being handled by the DA because they are the only government agency that standardized food products. No, so we are sure DA has this through buffs has a very specific answer to that. So we will just take note of your question. Please send us to us, and then we will coordinate with. Uh, if we don't have buffs here, we will coordinate and we will send you a specific answer to that specific question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. And then I think also I have been informed now. You will also, I think, in the upcoming webinar episodes, we will also invite the ABAFs. So maybe we can also direct this question to them po para mas klaro din. Okay. Thank you so much. Now let's move to the next question. Ito po, may nagpapatanong po. If a certain product is found to be not compliant to the PNS or the Philippine National Standard, what can the consumers do? Can we sue the manufacturer, supplier, or retailer?
Yes. If the product is that a consumer product that may fall under DTI jurisdiction, I would just be um, medyo specific ko siya, no? If it's a household appliances, construction materials, because we have list of mandatory products, no? I'm not sure if Ed have shown it, but it's available in our DTI portal. If the if the product falls under this listing, then you can you can lodge your comment, your complaint to the DTI website. We have there a various a contact email for the complaints to be lodged. Now, if it's not mandatory, you can still lodge your complaint there because in the absence of, even if it's not mandatory, as long as there is a standard minimum requirements, and if the complaint is not meeting the minimum requirements lang, um, they will still, DTI will still act on it. No, on the basis of available standard, whether it's voluntary, the DTI will still act on that. So please, you may kindly lodge your complaint to the DTI website complaint contacts.
Okay, thank you so much po. So, you heard about it, no? So, you can just contact DTI for those things. Okay, so that's good to hear na. Pero pwede pala silang lumapit talaga sa DTI. So, now let's go to the next question. Ito po, I think, yes, how to access and avail a PNS copy of a product from DTI. Are these for free or not? If not, how much is the fee?
Okay, I understand, if I am not mistaken, standards on food published by buffs are free. So it's available in the website of DA buffs. But for non-food, and if it's under the Department of Trade and Industry, we do not have a free standard for the public, not unless you are national government agency also and would be requesting doing it in official manner. But if you're a private individual from the industry, then you have to purchase it from the Bureau of Philippine Standards. We have the data standards data center. You can see that in our portal, and the price varies, no? Depende sa pages nung standard. But it's not costly. That is one main purpose of developing our own standard and adopting international standard to make it available in to the public, because it will, if it will be ISO standard, it will be very costly. It's about euros, no? So mahal talaga, expensive. So to make it available to our academe, to our students, manufacturing, to our various industry, we have it in a less expensive cost.
Okay, I see. Thank you so much, ma'am. So for those who are interested, please do visit no, yung sinabi ni ma'am or sinabi ni Sir Ed ng portal nila so that you will know how to access those PNS na kailangan nyo. So now let's go to the next question. Ito po. How are the PNS enforced? What are the agencies involved in the enforcement? What is the role of the LGUs in ensuring that PNS are observed?
Okay, as Ed have said earlier, the standard may be voluntary, but it can also be mandatory. For mandatory standards, there is a regulatory body that is responsible for specific product, for specific standards. But if it's not under a certain regulatory body other than BPS, BPS also has a product certification scheme, and the regulatory body is also BPS, but the enforcement group belongs to another bureau. So for DTI, for products under the jurisdiction of the Department of Trade and Industry, Bureau of Philippine Standards, it is the Fair Trade and Enforcement Bureau of DTI who will enforce, who will go to the establishments and check the compliance of the standard of the products to a specific Philippine national standard. So if you're a hardware, make sure that the construction materials and the electrical products that you are selling are in compliance with the Philippine national standards. Otherwise, if you will be caught, there are penalties, and I think the enforcement is being done through the coordination with the local government also, because we will be needing the um, some enforcement body, like we need the police, or the officials from that particular local government office.
Okay, thank you so much po. Now, for the next question, ito po, since we've talked na about no, if for the manufacturer, I think this is in for the manufacturer's point of view na din siguro. Ito po, a lot of manufacturers do not have any idea or knowledge on PNS. Some also complain because they have difficulty in meeting the provisions set by PNS. How do we address these issues?
A lot or some? What is the
Ito
lot
po,
or some?
yes,
Uh,
some also complain because they have difficulty in meeting provisions set by PNS.
okay. For the ilan yun, Ed? 88 products yata, basta 80 something products that were identified to be mandatory. The manufacturers has no choice but to comply with the specification of the standard, with the requirements. Now, if they are saying na they're having difficulty complying, the development of the standard is very transparent. The technical committee, as mentioned by Ed, has 7 stakeholders, no? So nandun lahat yung stakeholders concerned. During deliberation, there are validation tests na kinoconduct, so to ensure that these specs na pag-agrihan will be met, and then a circulation period, no, of 60 days. So we make sure that all concerned were consulted. So if they will say na mahirap at the end i-comply, then um, they have to justify it na mahirap talaga i-comply, because setting a requirement is supported by science again and technology.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. And yes, nga, may reason din naman behind those standards, diba? And then I think it was emphasized earlier by the presentation of Sir Ed din, why we need those standards. So now po, let's move to the next question. This one is from one of the faculty members here in Xavier University College of Agriculture, from Engineer Elenito Duran. He is asking po, in the registration of fertilizers and pesticides, do the Fertilizer and Pesticides Authority require that DTI requirements on product standards in order for these products to be registered for commercial use? And then is this ba daw a mandatory requirement?
Again, the product, the fertilizers and pesticide is under DA. But considering the importance and there's I mean there's a safety issue. As long as my safety issue, I think it's mandatory. So no, I can't say perfectly yes, no, but I think that's a very serious problem because it's about food. Anything about food is is has safety issue. So I think that is being taken care by DA through BPI, Bureau of Plant and Industry, and even BUFs, I think. So siguro sa BUFs, pag dumating ang DA na sa inyong ano, then you can address na siguro yung
Yes.
concern na yan. Thank
Okay
you.
po. Now let's move to the next question. This one po. We already have plenty of standards developed, but we also have 1,000 of substandard products sold in the market. What should we do about this?
Excuse me, we in the BPS, the Bureau of Philippine Standards, because we are mandated, because of our mandate, are doing our best to to enforce our standards, to go after this mga, shall we call it substandard, no? Others naman cannot say, minsan hindi nila talaga, hindi mo masasabi yung word na substandard because the standard has several requirements, consideration. So if it's not the specs, maybe yung ibang part ng requirement lang ang hindi nila ma-comply. But we have been trying our best. Marami nang na-penalize ang DTI for mandatory products. Hindi tumitigil ang DTI for that. So siguro yung mga voluntary standards lang, no, na hindi talaga ini-enforce because voluntary nga siya. So siguro doon lang may makikita na ano na sub, I myself can say substandard, no, but siguro partially not complying to the requirements of Philippine National Standard. But rest assured, DTI, BPS, and rest of the consumer group protection group of the DTI is doing our best to address this issue.
Yes, oo nga po. Hopefully, no, the numbers of these partially non-compliant products would really go down na din. And also, I hope our consumers also are responsible na din to consume yung mga produkto din na standard. Now po, let's move. I think this is the last question that we have. This is from Enrico Imperioneri. Asking po, I think this is pertaining to more on agricultural products. So is the effect of climate change incorporated in the promulgation of various standards?
I think hindi lang siya sa hindi lang siya sa agricultural products, no. I think in all products when we talk of climate change, no, because well, in electrical product, no, kung kahit ba ang requirement kahit nasunod yung requirement ng standard na sinet, no, pero kung nagbabago na talaga yung ating temperatura in every country nag-a-adjust talaga. Ang standard hindi siya nakapako sa bato, hindi siya nakapako talaga sa nag-change siya, depende. So kung mag-change na yung matindi na yung climate change, then kasi in every country nga iba-iba yung temperature, so may iba-ibang requirement din. So kung talagang titindi na ito, mag-a-adjust din tayo. So agriculture, syempre, no, obviously apektado sila. Household appliances, apektado. So the construction materials, apektado rin talaga because there are concerns on humidity, tinitingnan niyang pag like semento, may issue dyan ng humidity, no, yung moisture content in everything. So may epekto talaga ang climate change, not only to agricultural products but in most products that we have in our market.
Okay, I see. Thank you so much po, Ma'am Anne, and of course, Sir Ed. So before I ask for a message, meron po palang request din from a lot of our viewers. They're asking po if they can have a copy of the presentation and then use it as one of educational materials kasi mostly we have viewers that are faculty members or teachers in the universities and colleges. So okay lang po ba na makahingi sila ng copy and then use it as a teaching material for their students po?
We just have to get clearance from the office because this is the first time that we have different materials from the others. No, so we'll just get clearance from this office that we are providing Xavier, and we will get in touch with you. That's for sure because we would like to be of service. Not only to the industry but of course to the academe, no, because we believe in education.
Okay. Okay po. Thank you so much po. And then we are looking forward din po for the update on that. So anyway, again, thank you so much of course to DTI for saying yes to our invitation. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and expertise to us po. So before we end, of course, we'd like to ask a message. I think from both of you na to our audience. Again, we have a variety of audience in our live right now. So may mga people from the academe, students, both faculty and students, and we also have those from the different government agencies and the private sector. So ano po yung gusto niyong sabihin sa kanila? Maybe we'll start with Sir Ed po muna.
Firstly po siguro, I would like to express, or on behalf of the Bureau of Philippine Standards, we would like to express our deepest gratitude po to be invited here in this event. Kumbaga, this event po or this series of webinar can be used for us, kumbaga, to mainstream our standardization activities as well as to share our expertise for the benefit of the students and other related stakeholders. So, it's good to hear po na madami pong interested to know more about standards, and as one of the technical officers po under the Bureau of Philippine Standards, it's good po na kumbaga mas lumalaki po yung interest ng industry to participate in the standards development activity po. So on behalf of BTS po, thank you very much po.
Okay. Thank you po, Sir Ed. Thank you din po talaga sa time na binigay nyo para sa webinar na ito. And of course, Ma'am Anne, any message po?
Yes, first of all, congratulations to Xavier. We've seen your videos earlier, and it's really impressing talaga, no. This is your 43rd na webinar, so ang dami na ninyong na-educate talaga, not just within the university but outside your university, and we have our colleagues from the government offices, from the national government also, we have the DOST, and we have our co-DTI agency, the Bureau of Investment, so magkakakilala din kami, and gusto lang namin sabihin na ang DTI along with other government agency will always be here for the academe, suporta talaga kami sa inyong mga endeavors. So sana nakilala ninyo ang Bureau of Philippine Standards. I know marami pang hindi nakakakilala sa Bureau of Philippine Standards. Sana hindi lang kami nakilala doon sa mga household appliances. Baka hindi nga alam na kami yon kasi ang makikita mo lang doon is yung ICC, yung PS. So kami po yon, Bureau of Philippine Standards. The standards may be too technical, but we will be benefiting a lot. We will have a more mature consumer and manufacturers if standards will be considered in their manufacturing, in their consumption, because it's about quality, say quality, non-food or food. It's about safety or food and of non-food, and it's about the performance of non-food products, like construction materials, household appliances, and others. So sana makatulong namin kayo sa pagpapakilala ng aming serbisyo sa publiko. Marami pa sanang webinars ang makonduct ninyo sa pamunuan ng Xavier University. Congratulations at maraming salamat for having us in your 43rd webinar. Thank you.